In the shadows of New York's underworld, silence is the only currency that matters, and mercy is usually a death sentence. But on a rainy Tuesday at the Kensington, a waitress named Naomi Carter broke every unwritten rule of the city. She didn't know the trembling 10-year-old boy sitting alone in the corner was Ethan Cole, the sole heir to the most feared crime family on the East Coast. She didn't know the man watching silently from the darkened mezzanine was Nathan Cole, a capo, who hadn't felt a spark of fear or love since the day he buried his wife. When a glass shattered and a drunk patron lunged at the boy, Naomi didn't hesitate. That single split-second decision would ignite a war burn down a city and force the devil himself to their knees. This is the true story of how a waitress saved a wolf cub and found herself claimed by the pack. The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Kensington, a sound that usually comforted Naomi Carter. Tonight, however, it just sounded like static, matching the buzzing anxiety in her chest. Being a waitress at one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants meant invisibility was part of the uniform. You were there to refill wine, clear plates, and never ever make eye contact unless spoken to. Naomi adjusted her apron, her deep brown skin catching the warm light of the chandeliers, her eyes scanning the floor. It was a Tuesday, usually a slow night, but the private dining sector was buzzing. Senator Phillips was in booth 4, and the CEO of a major tech firm was loudly discussing a merger in the center of the room, but Naomi's eyes kept drifting to table 7. Sitting there completely alone was a boy. He couldn't have been more than 10 years old. He was dressed in a miniature suit that cost more than Naomi's car, a charcoal 3-piece that looked stiff and uncomfortable. His dark hair was slicked back, and his legs dangled off the velvet chair, not quite touching the floor. He had a coloring book open, but he wasn't coloring. He was staring at the store, his small hands gripping a crayon so hard his knuckles were white. "Stop staring, Naomi!" hissed Greg, the floor manager, snapping his fingers in front of her face. "Table 7 pays more for privacy than you will earn in a lifetime. Refill his water. Do not speak to him." Naomi nodded, swallowing a retort. She grabbed the crystal pitcher and made her way over. As she poured the water, she noticed the boy flinch. "It's okay," she whispered, breaking the rule of silence. "Just water. Are you hungry, sweetie?" The boy looked up. His eyes were a piercing, icy blue, startlingly intelligent, but filled with a profound, vibrating terror. He shook his head minutely. "Hey, you!" The shout boomed across the restaurant, silencing the hum of conversation. Naomi froze. A man stumbled out of the bar area. It was Mr. Henderson, a hedge fund manager, known for tipping poorly and drinking top-shelf scotch like it was apple juice. He was swaying, his face flushed a violent red. "Where is my drink?" Henderson bellowed, knocking into a waiter. He scanned the room, his blurry eyes locking onto table 7. "And why is there a kid in here? This is a gentleman's establishment." Greg, the manager, was nowhere to be seen. The security guard was on the other side of the room, distracted by the senator. Henderson stumbled towards the boy. "You think you're special, kid, sitting there like a little prince?" The boy, Ethan, shrank back into his chair, the crayon snapping in his hand. "Sir, please," Naomi said. Stepping between the table and the drunk man, her heart was hammering against her ribs. "He's just a child. Please return to the bar." Henderson looked at Naomi as if she were a stain on his shoe. "Get out of my way, sweetheart. I want to teach this brat some manners." "Staring at me, who does he think he is?" Henderson lunged. It wasn't a coordinated attack, just a drunken heavy shove intended to push the table over and scare the boy, but he was a large man, over 6 feet tall and heavy. Naomi didn't think. She didn't calculate the risk of losing her job or the danger of assaulting a VIP guest. She saw the heavy oak table tipping towards the terrified boy's legs. She threw herself forward. She caught the edge of the table with her hip, a blooming bruise forming instantly, and used her momentum to shove Henderson back. But Henderson flailed his hand, grabbing a heavy crystal wine decanter from a nearby tray. He swung it wildly. "No!" Naomi screamed. She twisted her body, shielding the boy with her own back. Crack. The decanter shattered against Naomi's shoulder blade. The pain was blinding, white-hot and immediate. Shards of glass rained down, slicing into her arms and the boy's cheek. The entire restaurant gasped. Silence fell absolute and terrifying. Naomi fell to her knees, gasping, her arm instinctively wrapping around the boy's head, pulling him into her chest. "Don't look!" she whispered through grit teeth, blood seeping through her white uniform. "Don't look, honey!" Henderson stood there panting, realizing what he had done. "She attacked me! You all saw it! The Guinea attacked me!" For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then, from the shadows of the mezzanine balcony above, a slow clapping began. Clap, clap, clap. It was a dark, hollow sound. A man descended the spiral staircase. He moved with the predatory grace of a panther, silent and fluid. He wore a black suit that absorbed the light, and his face was a mask of cold, terrifying indifference. It was Nathan Cole, and he looked ready to burn the world down. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees as Nathan Cole reached the bottom of the stairs. He didn't look at the senator. He didn't look at the hedge fund manager. His eyes, identical to the boy's, that same piercing ice blue, were locked on Naomi, a young black woman huddled on the floor, bleeding, shielding his son. 2 men in dark suits materialized behind Nathan. They were massive, their presence heavy with the promise of violence. "Papa!" Ethan cried out, his voice cracking. He tried to scramble up, but Naomi held him gently. "Stay down, Ethan," Naomi whispered, wincing as the glass in her shoulder shifted. Nathan stopped 3 feet from them. He crouched down, ignoring the blood that was now pooling on the expensive Persian rug. He looked at his son. "Ethan, are you hurt?" "She saved me," Ethan whispered, pointing a shaking finger at Naomi the man. "He tried to hit me with the bottle. She jumped in the way." Nathan's gaze slowly shifted to Naomi. Up close, he was devastatingly handsome, but in the way a thunderstorm is beautiful, dangerous, and overwhelming. He saw the blood soaking her uniform, the glass embedded in her shoulder, and the fierce protective grip she still had on his son. He reached out his hand, hovering near her face. Naomi flinched. "I am not going to hurt you," Nathan said, his voice a low baritone that vibrated in her chest. "You are bleeding." "I'm fine." Naomi lied, her voice trembling. "Just get him out of here." Nathan stood up. The tenderness vanished instantly, replaced by a cold rage that made the air feel thin. He turned to Henderson. Henderson was sobering up rapidly, his face draining of color. He recognized Nathan Cole. Everyone in New York knew the face of the man who controlled the docks, the unions, and half the real estate in Manhattan. Mr. Cole, Henderson stammered, holding his hands up. "I didn't know the boy." He was staring. It was a misunderstanding. The waitress, she escalated it. Greg, the manager, finally rushed over, sweating profusely. "Mr. Cole, I am so sorry. This is unacceptable. Naomi, you are fired. Get out. You've caused a scene and assaulted a guest." Greg grabbed Naomi's uninjured arm to yank her up. "Touch her again," Nathan said softly, "and you will lose that hand." Greg froze, releasing Naomi as if she were red-hot iron. Nathan walked toward Henderson. He didn't shout. He didn't scream. He simply invaded the man's personal space until Henderson was backing up against the bar. "You threw a decanter," Nathan said, his voice conversational, "at my son. I was drunk. It was an accident," Henderson pleaded. "I can pay. I'll pay for everything. The boy, the girl, name your price." Nathan tilted his head. "My son is not for sale, and neither is the woman who bled for him." Nathan snapped his fingers. The 2 guards stepped forward. One grabbed Henderson by the collar, lifting him off his feet effortlessly. Henderson squealed like a trapped pig. "Take Mr. Henderson to the alley," Nathan said, adjusting his cufflinks. "He seems to have trouble standing. Ensure he learns how to fall repeatedly." As Henderson was dragged screaming from the restaurant, the room remained dead silent. Senator Phillips suddenly found his menu very interesting. The tech CEO looked at the floor. Nathan turned back to Greg. "You fired her. Sue. She caused a liability, Mr. Cole. Greg stuttered. Policy. Your policy is to let drunks attack children, Nathan asked. She is the only person in this room with a spine, and you fired her. Nathan pulled a phone from his pocket. He dialed a number, spoke 2 words. Buy it, and hung up. He looked at Greg. Get out. Excuse me. I just bought the building and the restaurant. Nathan said calmly. You are trespassing on my property. Leave before I have you thrown out with Mr. Henderson. Greg's jaw dropped. He looked around, realized the absolute seriousness in Nathan's eyes, and fled. Nathan turned back to Naomi. She had managed to stand up, swaying slightly. The adrenaline was fading and the pain was setting in. The room was spinning. Miss Nathan started. Carter, she whispered. Naomi, Naomi. He said her name like it was a prayer. I need to take you to a doctor. My private doctor. I can't, Naomi mumbled, clutching her shoulder. I don't have insurance. I just lost my job. I have rent. You don't have rent, Nathan said, stepping closer as her knees buckled. He caught her effortlessly, scooping her up into his arms. She felt small against his solid chest. She smelled expensive cologne, gun oil, and rain. Put me down, she murmured weakly. No, Nathan replied. He looked at Ethan, who was standing by his side, looking at Naomi with wide, wishing eyes. Grab her purse, Ethan. We are leaving. As Nathan carried her out of the restaurant, past the stunned patrons, and into the rainy New York night, Naomi looked up at him. Why? She asked. Nathan looked down, his eyes hard but his grip gentle. Because you protected what is mine, and the Valentis always pay their debts. Naomi's vision blurred. The last thing she heard before the darkness took her was Nathan barking orders at his driver, his voice sharp with a panic he hadn't shown inside. Get the car now. She's losing too much blood. Consciousness returned to Naomi Carter in slow, jagged waves. The first thing she noticed was the smell. It wasn't the bleach and despair scent of a city hospital. It was lavender crisp linen and the faint metallic tang of rain on pavement. She tried to sit up, but a sharp hot line of pain seared across her right shoulder, pinning her back down. A gasp escaped her lips. Careful, a voice said. It wasn't the deep, rumbling baritone of Nathan Cole. It was lighter, clinical, yet kind. Naomi blinked, her eyes open. She was lying in a bed that felt like a cloud in a room that looked more like a 5-star hotel suite than a recovery ward. The walls were a soft cream adorned with abstract art that probably cost more than her college tuition. Floor toe-siling windows revealed a manicured garden bathed in moonlight. She wasn't in New York City anymore, or at least not the part she knew. A man in a white coat stood by the bedside adjusting an IV drip. He had wire-rimmed glasses and a name tag that read, Dr. Elias Thorne. Where am I? Naomi croaked. Her throat felt like sandpaper. You are at the Cole estate in the Hamptons, Dr. Thorne said, gently pouring a glass of water and holding the straw to her lips. I'm Dr. Thorne. I handle the family's private medical needs. You've had quite the night, Miss Carter. 17 stitches in your shoulder, 3 in your forearm, and a mild concussion. Naomi drank greedily, the water soothing her parched throat. Memories flooded back. The restaurant, the drunk man, the boy. Nathan Cole's eyes. The boy, she said, pushing herself up despite the pain. Ethan, is he okay? Dr. Thorne smiled, a genuine expression that softened his features. He is physically fine. He has been sitting outside this door for 4 hours, refusing to move until you woke up. Naomi's heart gave a strange squeeze. He's here. We are all here. A new voice spoke from the shadows of the doorway. Naomi froze. Nathan Cole stepped into the light. He had shed his suit jacket, his white dress shirt unbuttoned at the collar sleeves, rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle and inked with faint, intricate tattoos. He looked exhausted, the lines around his eyes deeper than before, but his gaze was as intense as a laser. Dr. Thorne nodded respectfully to Nathan and quietly exited the room, closing the door with a soft click. Suddenly, the room felt very small. Nathan walked to the foot of the bed. He didn't speak immediately. He just looked at her, studying her face as if he were memorizing a map. "You shouldn't have done it," he said finally. His voice was devoid of gratitude, flat and hard. Naomi blinked, confused. "Excuse me." "You shouldn't have jumped in front of him," Nathan repeated. He walked to the side of the bed, looming over her. "You are a civilian. You are small. You have no combat training. You could have been killed. If that decanter had hit your temple instead of your shoulder, we would be having this conversation in a morgue." Anger, hot and sudden, flared in Naomi's chest, overriding the pain. "You're welcome," she snapped. Nathan's eyes widened slightly. He wasn't used to being snapped at. "I didn't do it for you," Naomi continued, her voice trembling but firm. "I did it because a grown man was attacking a child. I don't care who you are. I don't care who he is. I wasn't going to watch a little boy get hurt." Nathan stared at her for a long, stretching silence. Then slowly, the tension in his shoulders dropped. He pulled a chair over and sat down, bringing himself to her eye level. "No one has protected him before," Nathan said quietly, the mask slipping just an inch. "Not outside the family, and usually not without a paycheck involved." "He looked lonely," Naomi whispered, "and scared." "He is a Cole," Nathan said, his voice hardening again. "We are not allowed to be scared. It is a death sentence in our world. He's 10, Nathan, Naomi said, using his first name without thinking. "He's a child, not a soldier." Nathan flinched at the use of his name, his jaw tightening. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a sleek black smartphone. He slid it across the bedside table toward her. "Your phone was destroyed in the fall. I bought you a new one. Your number is transferred. Your rent is paid for the next year. Your student loans." He glanced at a file in his hand for your nursing degree that you had to abandon, paid in full. Naomi stared at him, horror dawning on her. "You investigated me." "I investigate everyone who breathes near my son," Nathan said unapologetically. Naomi Carter, 24 years old. African-American orphan since age 12, foster system survivor, dropped out of nursing school to pay for your grandmother's hospice care until she passed last month. You have no living family, no boyfriend. You live in a studio apartment in Queens with a broken radiator. He stood up, regaining his distance. "You are paid in full for your service, Miss Carter. The car will take you home in the morning." It was a dismissal, a transaction. He was buying her heroism so he wouldn't have to owe her anything. The realization stung more than the stitches. "I didn't do it for money," Naomi said, turning her head away. "I don't want your money." "Everyone wants money," Nathan said cynically. "I want to see Ethan," she said. "No, he's waiting outside." "He gets attached too easily," Nathan said, his voice rough. "His mother. She died 3 years ago. Since then, he hasn't spoken a word to a stranger. Tonight he spoke to you. That makes you dangerous." "Dangerous?" Naomi scoffed. "I'm a waitress." "You are a weakness," Nathan corrected. "If my enemies see that he cares for you, they will use you to get to him. It is better for you to leave. Disappear." Before Naomi could argue, the door handle turned. "Papa!" A small voice came from the crack. Nathan sighed, closing his eyes for a brief second, showing a rare moment of defeat. "Ethan, I told you to go to bed." The door pushed open. Ethan stood there, still in his little suit, though the tie was gone. He was clutching the coloring book from the restaurant. He looked at Nathan, then at Naomi. He didn't run to his father. He ran to the bed. "Ethan, careful." Nathan warned, stepping forward, but Ethan was gentle. He reached out and touched Naomi's uninjured hand. His eyes were red-rimmed. "Did you die?" he asked, his voice shaking. Naomi's heart broke. She squeezed his small hand. "No, sweetie. I'm right here. I'm okay. See, just a few bandages." Ethan let out a breath that sounded like a sob. He climbed onto the edge of the oversized bed, curling his legs up, sitting like a guard dog at her feet. He opened his coloring book and placed it on the blanket. "I made this for you," he whispered. It was a drawing of a stick-figure woman with a yellow halo standing in front of a stick-figure boy stopping a giant red blob. Nathan watched them, his face impassive, but his mind racing. He saw the way Ethan leaned into her. He saw the way Naomi's hand naturally smoothed Ethan's hair, a maternal gesture that seemed as instinctive as breathing. He had tried to buy her off. He had tried to push her away. But as he watched his son, who hadn't smiled in 3 years, show a drawing to this stranger, Nathan realized with a sinking dread that this wasn't over. Fate had just dealt him a hand he didn't know how to play. "Miss Carter." Nathan said, his voice changing. The coldness was gone, replaced by a dark, calculating intensity. "Change of plans." Naomi looked up, wary. "What, you can't go home tomorrow?" Why not? Nathan walked to the window, looking out at the dark grounds of the estate. "Because I just received a call from my head of security. A video of the incident at the restaurant has been leaked online. It has 2 million views." He turned back to her, his eyes grim. "Your face is everywhere, and the caption reads, 'The Angel of the Valentis.'" The silence in the room was heavy, suffocating. The beep of the heart monitor seemed to grow louder. "What does that mean?" Naomi asked, her hand instinctively tightening around Ethan's. Nathan walked over to a large flat-screen TV mounted on the wall and turned it on. He switched to a news channel. There on the screen was the shaky cell phone footage from the Kensington. It showed Henderson swinging the bottle, Naomi diving in, and Nathan descending the stairs like an avenging god. The news anchor's voice filled the room. "Social media is buzzing about the mystery woman who saved the life of Ethan Cole, son of alleged mob boss Nathan Cole. Sources say the Cole family, known for their ruthlessness, is indebted to this unknown waitress. But questions arise. Is she a secret lover? A bodyguard? Rival gangs have already commented on the weakness showing in the Cole armor." Nathan turned the TV off. "You are now a public figure," Nathan stated. "And in my world, public figures connected to me are targets." Naomi felt the blood drain from her face. "I can just go back to Queens. I'll stay inside. No one knows where I live." Nathan laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "Henderson knows. He was released on bail an hour ago. He has friends, nasty friends. And besides him, the Russians have been looking for leverage on me for months. Kidnapping the woman who saved the heir would be a perfect way to force my hand." Naomi looked at Ethan. The boy was looking back and forth between them, understanding the tone, if not the words. He looked terrified again. "So, what are you saying?" Naomi asked, a voice barely a whisper. "I'm a prisoner." "No," Nathan said. He walked back to the bed. "I am offering you a job." "I have a job? Or I did?" "I'm offering you a position," wared at him. "Doing what?" "Ethan needs a governess." Nathan lied smoothly. He didn't care about a governess. He had tutors for that. He needed her close so he could control the variable she represented. Someone to watch him be with him. "He clearly trusts you, and I need someone I can trust to keep him safe while I handle the fallout of this mess." "You trust me?" Naomi asked skeptically. "You don't even know me." "I know you took a bottle to the shoulder for a child you didn't know," Nathan said. "That tells me everything I need to know about your loyalty and your stupidity. I can work with both." He leaned in, his hands resting on the bed rails, boxing her in. "The deal is this. You live here. My security protects you 24/7. You receive a salary of $10,000 a month. You stay with Ethan. You do not leave the estate without my permission. In exchange, I keep you alive and I wipe out your debts. For how long? Until the heat dies down. 6 months, maybe a year." Naomi looked at Ethan. The boy had stopped coloring. He was holding his breath, his blue eyes wide with hope. He grabbed her hand with both of his. "Please," Ethan whispered. "Please stay. I promise I'll be good." That shattered her. How could she say no? Going back to Queens meant looking over her shoulder every second, waiting for a bullet or a kidnapping van. Staying here meant safety, but it meant living in the lion's den with the most dangerous man in New York. She looked up at Nathan. His face was unreadable, but his eyes were burning. There was a challenge there. Dare you to enter my world? I have conditions, Naomi said, finding a backbone she didn't know she had. Nathan raised an eyebrow. You are in no position to negotiate, Miss Carter. But amuse me. 1, Naomi said, holding up a finger. I am not a servant. I am Ethan's companion. I don't wear a uniform. Agreed, Nathan said instantly. 2, I get to call my friend Sarah. I need to tell her I'm okay so she doesn't file a missing person report, but I won't tell her where I am. Monitored call? Agreed. And 3, Naomi said, her voice wavering slightly. You don't touch me. This is professional. I'm not one of your women. Nathan's expression darkened. He leaned closer, so close she could feel the heat radiating off him. His gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes. The air in the room grew thick with sudden electric tension. You think you are my type, Naomi, he murmured, his voice low and raspy. My type are women who know the game, women who don't bleed on my rugs. You are a civilian. You are safe from me. He straightened up, buttoning his collar. Rest. We will move your things from Queens tomorrow. Welcome to the family, Naomi. He turned and walked out. Naomi let out a breath she had been holding for minutes. She slumped back against the pillows. Ethan cheered quietly, snuggling into her side. You're staying? He beamed. Yeah, buddy, Naomi sighed, stroking his hair. I'm staying. But as she looked out the window at the moonlit garden, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just signed a deal with the devil. Nathan said she wasn't his type, that she was safe. But the way he had looked at her, the raw, predatory hunger she had glimpsed for just a split second. She touched her shoulder. The wound throbbed. Outside the door in the hallway, Nathan Cole leaned against the wall. He took a deep breath, running a hand through his hair. His heart was beating faster than it had in years. He had lied. She was exactly his type. The fire in her eyes when she snapped at him, the softness in her hands when she held his son. She was everything he had forced himself to forget existed. He pulled out his phone and dialed his consigliere. Marcus. It's done, Nathan said into the phone. She's staying. Is that wise, Nate? Marcus asked. The Marchetti family is making moves, bringing a civilian into the house now. She's not a civilian anymore, Nathan said, pushing off the wall. She's mine. And if the Moretts touch a hair on her head, I will burn their entire lineage to the ground. He hung up and walked down the long, empty corridor, the echo of his footsteps sounding like war drums. The waitress had saved the wolf cub, but now she was trapped in the den with the alpha, and Nathan wasn't sure who was in more danger, her or him. Life inside the Cole estate was like living in a beautiful velvet-lined coffin. It was comfortable, silent, and entirely cut off from the real world. 2 weeks had passed since the incident at the Kensington. For Naomi, the days had bled into a routine that was both terrifyingly foreign and strangely domestic. Her shoulder was healing the stitches, itching beneath the bandages, but the emotional bruising was taking longer to fade. She was ostensibly the governess, but in reality she was Ethan's anchor. The boy was a revelation. Away from the prying eyes of the public and the terrifying stoicism of his father, Ethan was a child starving for affection. He loved Legos, hated broccoli, and had a fascination with astronomy. Naomi spent hours in the estate's massive library reading books about black holes and nebulas to him while he built intricate spaceships on the Persian rugs. Nathan, however, was a ghost. Naomi saw him only in passing, a dark silhouette in the hallway, the slam of a car door at 2 a.m., the smell of cigar smoke lingering in the study. He avoided her with a precision that felt surgical. Yet Naomi could feel his eyes on her. When she walked in the garden with Ethan, she would glance up at the third-floor balcony and see the curtains twitch. When she laughed at dinner with Ethan, the air in the room would shift as if someone was listening from the shadows. It was a Tuesday evening, raining again, when the fragile peace was shattered. Naomi was in the kitchen helping the elderly cook Maria prepare hot chocolate. It was the one place in the house that felt normal. "He eats too much sugar," a voice rumbled from the doorway. Naomi jumped, nearly dropping the spoon. Nathan was leaning against the doorframe. He looked different tonight. He wasn't wearing his suit jacket and his tie was undone. He held a tumbler of amber liquid in his hand, his knuckles white against the glass. "He's a child," Naomi said, recovering her composure. "And it's 90% milk. He had a nightmare about the restaurant again. This helps him sleep." Nathan's expression tightened. He walked into the kitchen, the room suddenly feeling too small. He placed his glass on the marble island. "He talks to you about it?" Nathan asked, his voice low. "The nightmare?" "Yes, he never talks to me." "You're his father, Nathan. But you're also you," Naomi said softly. "He thinks he has to be strong for you. He thinks if he cries, he's failing you." Nathan looked down at the swirling liquid in his glass. "He is a coal. If he is weak, the world will eat him alive. I am trying to toughen him up." "He's 10, Naomi argued, stepping closer. "He doesn't need to be tough. He needs to know he's safe. There is a difference between being a soldier and being a survivor. You're raising a soldier. I'm trying to help him survive being a kid." Nathan looked up, his eyes locking onto hers. The intensity of his gaze pinned her to the spot. "And who taught you that?" "The survivor part." "Life," Naomi answered simply. "The foster system isn't so different from your world. You keep your head down. You don't make noise, and you pray the monsters don't notice you." Nathan reached out his hand, brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear. His fingers were rough, calloused from violence, but his touch was shockingly gentle. Naomi's breath hitched. She didn't pull away. "You are not invisible anymore, Naomi," he murmured. "The monsters have noticed you." Before the moment could deepen, the front intercom buzzed loudly, echoing through the house. Nathan pulled back instantly, the mask of the dawn slamming back into place. He tapped his earpiece. "Talk to me." Naomi watched as Nathan's face went from neutral to a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. "Stay here," he ordered Naomi, his voice like ice. "Do not leave this kitchen." He turned and strode towards the main hall. Naomi, ignoring his order, followed him to the foyer, hiding behind a pillar. The head of security, a massive man named Russo, was holding a package. It was a simple brown box wrapped in twine. It had been left at the main gate. "Bomb squad cleared it, boss," Russo said, his face pale. "But you need to see what's inside." Nathan opened the box. Naomi leaned forward, straining to see. Inside the box lay a pristine white Waitress apron, identical to the one Naomi wore at the Kensington, but the center of the apron was stained with a violent splash of red paint, mimicking blood. Lying on top of the apron was a single dead blue jay and a note. Nathan picked up the card. He read it, his hand trembling with rage. "A pretty bird for a pretty cage, but even birds die when the winter comes. Tell the angel we will see her soon. Signed V.M. Victor Marchetti." Nathan crushed the card in his fist. He turned to Russo. "Double the perimeter. Call the boys. Get the car ready. Where are we going, boss?" "We aren't going anywhere," Nathan snarled. "We are going to war, but first we have to go to a party." He turned and saw Naomi standing by the pillar. She was staring at the dead bird, her face white as a sheet. She knew what it meant. They knew she was here. They knew she was important. Nathan walked over to her. He didn't offer comfort. He didn't offer lies. "Go upstairs," he commanded. "Pack a bag. Formal wear." "Why?" Naomi whispered. "Because hiding you isn't working." Nathan said, his eyes burning with a dark, dangerous resolve. "Marchetti thinks you are a weakness. He thinks I am hiding you because I am ashamed or afraid. So tomorrow night at the mayor's gala, I am going to show him the truth." "What truth?" Nathan stepped close, grabbing her chin and forcing her to look at him. "That you are not a weakness," he hissed. "You are the queen on the chessboard, and I am going to use you to draw the king out so I can kill him." The Pierre Hotel ballroom was a sea of diamonds, black ties, and fake smiles. It was the annual charity gala for the NYPD, the irony of which was not lost on Naomi. The room was filled with politicians, judges, celebrities, and the men who secretly owned them all. Naomi stood at the top of the grand staircase, her hand trembling slightly on Nathan's arm. She looked unrecognizable. The simple waitress from Queens was gone. In her place stood a vision of dangerous elegance. Nathan had chosen the dress himself, a floor-length gown of deep blood-red silk that clung to her curves like a second skin, the crimson striking against her dark skin. It had a slit that went up to her thigh and a back that plunged dangerously low. Around her neck hung a diamond necklace that was cold against her skin. "Breathe," Nathan whispered in her ear. His hand was warm and firm on the small of her back. "If you look scared, they will smell blood. You own this room. You are with me." "I feel like bait," Naomi muttered, forcing a smile for the photographers flashing below. "You are bait," Nathan admitted. "But I am the trap." They descended the stairs. The room quieted. All eyes turned to Nathan Cole and the mystery woman on his arm, the Angel of the Coles. The rumors had been flying for weeks, but seeing her here wearing the Cole family diamonds confirmed everything. Nathan navigated the crowd with the ease of a shark swimming through a school of fish. He introduced Naomi to senators and judges, his hand never leaving her waist. He was marking his territory. "Mr. Cole." A greasy voice oozed from behind them. Nathan stiffened. He turned slowly. Standing there was a man who looked like a caricature of a mobster, but with eyes that were dead and soulless. He was shorter than Nathan, wider, with a smile that showed too many teeth. "Victor Marchetti, the man who sent the dead bird." "Victor!" Nathan nodded, his face a mask of polite indifference. "I didn't know they let rats into the pier." Victor laughed, a wet hacking sound. Always a joker, Nate. And this Victor's eyes ran over Naomi, lingering on her chest in a way that made her skin crawl. "This must be the famous Naomi the waitress who plays hero." "Miss Carter to you," Nathan said, stepping slightly in front of her. "Of course," S said. He stepped closer, invading Naomi's personal space. "You know, Miss Carter, New York is a dangerous city. Accidents happen, glass breaks, birds fall from the sky." Naomi felt a surge of fear, but then she remembered Ethan. She remembered the fear in the boy's eyes. This man was the reason Ethan couldn't sleep. This man was the reason she was living in a cage. Anger replaced fear. Naomi looked Victor, Marchetti dead in the eye. "I'm not afraid of birds, Mr. Marchetti," she said, her voice steady. "And I handle broken glass just fine. I cleaned up messes for a living." Nathan looked at her, surprise and pride flashing in his eyes. S's smile faltered. He hadn't expected the civilian to bite back. Feisty, he sneered. "I like that. Enjoy the party, Nate. While it lasts." Victor turned and disappeared into the crowd. "You did good," Nathan whispered, guiding her towards the dance floor. "Better than good. I hate him." Naomi said, her hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. "I know, dance with me." The orchestra began to play a slow, melancholic waltz. Nathan pulled her close. For a moment, the danger faded. There was just the heat of his hand, the smell of his cologne, and the way their bodies moved in perfect sync. Naomi looked up at him. "What happens now?" "Now," Nathan said, his eyes scanning the balcony, the exits, the waiters. "We wait for him to make a mistake." "He won't do anything here," Naomi said. "There are police everywhere. The police are on his payroll or mine. It doesn't matter." Nathan spun her around. "Naomi, listen to me closely. If anything happens, if you hear a pop, if the lights go out, you drop to the floor. You do not run. You stay under me. Do you understand, Nathan? You're scaring me." "Good. Fear keeps you alive." As the music swelled, Nathan pulled her flush against him. His face was inches from hers. The tension that had been building for weeks in the library, in the kitchen, in the silence of the estate, finally snapped. "I tried to send you away," Nathan murmured, staring at her lips. I tried to pay you off, but you are the most stubborn woman I have ever met. Maybe you just like the trouble, Naomi whispered. I think, Nathan said, leaning in. I am beginning to like you. He lowered his head. Naomi closed her eyes, her heart hammering against her ribs. Bang! The sound wasn't like a movie. It wasn't a loud boom. It was a sharp crack like a whip. The champagne glass in the hand of the woman next to Naomi exploded. Down, Nathan roared. He didn't just push her, he tackled her. He threw his entire weight over Naomi, slamming her to the marble floor, just as a second shot chipped the stone pillar where her head had been a second ago. Screams erupted. The ballroom turned into chaos. People trampled each other. Tables were overturned. "Stay down!" Nathan yelled, pulling a gun from a holster hidden beneath his jacket. "Nathan!" Naomi screamed, clutching his lapels. "I see him!" Nathan growled. Up on the mezzanine balcony, a waiter had dropped his tray and was raising a suppressed pistol. It wasn't Marchetti. It was a hired hitman. Nathan didn't hesitate. He raised his gun, aiming through the panic through the running bodies. He fired once. The man on the balcony jerked back and fell over the railing, crashing onto the buffet table below. "Move!" Nathan grabbed Naomi's hand, hauling her up. "We have to go to the kitchen." They ran. Naomi's heels slipped on the spilled champagne and broken glass. Nathan half-carried her, his gun sweeping the room. They burst into the hotel kitchen. Cooks were cowering under stainless steel tables. "The back exit," Nathan commanded. "Go." They reached the loading dock. The cool night air hit Naomi's face. "We made it!" she gasped. "No!" Nathan said, stopping abruptly. He looked at the alleyway. It was blocked. A black SUV was parked horizontally across the exit. 4 men stood there holding submachine guns, and in the center, smoking a cigar, was Victor Marchetti. "I told you, Nate!" Marchetti called out, his voice echoing off the brick walls. "The party is over." Nathan pushed Naomi behind him. He checked his magazine. He had 6 bullets. There were 5 men. "Naomi," Nathan said, his voice strangely calm. "Yes," she wept. "Do you trust me?" "Yes. When I start shooting, you run back inside. You find Russo. You don't look back." "No." Naomi grabbed his arm. "I'm not leaving you." Nathan turned to her in the dim light of the alley, with death staring them in the face. He cupped her cheek. "You have to," he said, "because Ethan needs one of us, and it looks like it's going to be you." He kissed her. It was hard, desperate, and tasted of goodbye. Then Nathan Cole turned, raised his gun, and walked into the fire. The alleyway behind the pier was a canyon of shadows, illuminated only by the harsh yellow glare of a distant street lamp and the headlights of Marchetti's SUV. The air smelled of wet asphalt and impending death. Nathan walked forward. He didn't run. He didn't crouch. He walked with the terrifying calm of a man who had already accepted his fate. "Bold!" Marchetti laughed, signaling his men. "Cut him down!" Nathan moved. It was a blur of motion too fast for the human eye to track comfortably. As the first submachine gun raised, Nathan fired. Bang, bang. 2 guards dropped holes in their foreheads before their bodies even registered the impact. Nathan dove behind a stack of industrial dumpsters as the alley erupted in a hail of bullets. Sparks flew as rounds chewed up the metal shielding him. He was pinned. He had 4 bullets left. There were 3 men standing plus Marchetti. "You're getting old, Nate." Marchetti taunted, firing blindly at the dumpster. "You missed me." Inside the hotel doorway, Naomi stood frozen. Her entire body screamed at her to run. Find Russo, find safety, run to Ethan. That was the deal. But then she saw it. One of the gunmen was flanking Nathan. He was creeping along the wall, moving to get a clear angle behind the dumpster. Nathan was focused on Marchetti. He didn't see the man circling him. If Naomi ran, Nathan died. It wasn't a choice. It was a reflex. Lying on the concrete near the door was the hitman Nathan had shot from the balcony, the one who had fallen. His suppressed pistol lay a few feet from his outstretched hand. Naomi didn't think about nursing school. She didn't think about the oath to do no harm. She thought about a little boy with blue eyes who had asked if she had died. She thought about the man who had told her she was a queen. She lunged for the gun. It was heavier than it looked, cold and greasy. In the alley, the flanking gunman raised his weapon, aiming at Nathan's exposed back. "Hey!" Naomi screamed. The gunman turned surprised to see the girl in the red dress standing there. Naomi squeezed the trigger. She didn't aim. She just pointed and prayed. The gun kicked hard, bruising her wrist. The bullet went wide, shattering a brick near the gunman's head. But it was enough. The gunman flinched, distracted. Nathan heard the shot. He heard her voice. She didn't run. "Naomi, get down." Nathan roared. He used the split second of distraction. He rolled out from cover, exposing himself to fire. He double-tapped the flanking gunman. Bang, bang. The man fell. Nathan spun towards the SUV, firing his last 2 rounds. One hit the driver, who slumped over the horn. The blaring sound of the horn filled the alley, a constant, deafening scream, but the chamber clicked empty. Marchetti stood 10 feet away. He realized Nathan was out of ammo. A cruel, triumphant grin split his face. He raised a heavy revolver, aiming directly at Nathan's chest. Nathan was on one knee. No cover, empty gun. "Say goodbye, Nate." Marchetti sneered. "I'll make sure the girl screams for you." Nathan looked at the barrel of the gun. He didn't flinch. He just looked past Marchetti, his eyes locking with Naomi's. There was no fear in them, only an apology. "I couldn't save you." Marchetti's finger tightened on the trigger. Click. The alley went silent, save for the blaring car horn. Marchetti frowned. Confused. He pulled the trigger again. Click. Misfire. Marchetti snarled, racking the slide. "No," a voice said from the darkness. "Betrayal." Marchetti froze. He looked down at his own hand. Suddenly, the back window of the SUV rolled down. A man was sitting there. Marchetti's own underboss, Lucas. "Sorry, Vic," Lucas said, lighting a cigarette. But Cole made a better offer. Marchetti spun around, eyes wide with shock. "Lucas, you rat! I'm your brother-in-law. Business is business." Lucas shrugged. "And Cole offered me the territory. Plus, you shot at a kid, Vic. Even rats have standards." Nathan stood up slowly. He tossed his empty gun aside. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a switchblade. Marchetti backed up, fumbling to reload his revolver. "Nate, wait. We can talk. The commission. The commission isn't here." Nathan set his voice a low growl. "You threatened my son. You hunted my woman." Nathan lunged. It was over in seconds. The violence was brutal, personal, and final. When Nathan stepped back, Marchetti lay still on the wet pavement. Nathan stood there, breathing heavy. Blood not his own splattered on his white shirt. The adrenaline was crashing. He turned slowly toward the hotel door. Naomi was still standing there, holding the gun with both hands shaking violently. She looked at the bodies. She looked at the blood. She looked at the man she had fallen in love with. A monster, a killer, a savior. Nathan walked toward her. He stopped a foot away, afraid to touch her with his bloody hands. "I told you to run," he rasped. "I don't take orders." Well, Naomi whispered, the gun slipping from her fingers and clattering to the ground. "You saved my life," Nathan said, looking at her with a reverence usually reserved for saints. "That guy, he had me dead. You distracted him." "I missed Naomi," said, tears finally spilling over. "You didn't miss what mattered," Nathan said. He stripped off his ruined jacket and threw it on the ground. He stepped forward and pulled her into his arms, crushing her against him. He didn't care about the blood. He didn't care about the sirens wailing in the distance. He buried his face in her neck, breathing in her scent, grounding himself. "It's over," he murmured into her hair. "He's gone. You're safe. Ethan is safe." Naomi sobbed into his chest, the adrenaline leaving her body, leaving her knees weak. "I thought I lost you. You can't lose me." Nathan promised, lifting her face to look into her eyes. "I belong to you now. Debt paid." 3 years later, the sun was setting over the Amalfi coast, painting the sky in hues of violet and gold. The terrace of the villa overlooked the sparkling Mediterranean Sea. Naomi sat at the patio table, sipping a glass of wine. She looked different now. The haunted look in her eyes was gone, replaced by a quiet confidence. She wore a simple white sundress, and on her finger a diamond the size of a robin's egg glittered in the light. "Mama, look." Naomi turned. Ethan, now 13 and going through a growth spurt, was running up the stone steps from the private beach. He was tan, smiling, and holding a massive seashell. "It's a Triton's trumpet," Ethan announced proudly, placing it on the table. "Dad said it's rare." "It's beautiful, Ethan," Naomi said, smoothing his messy hair. "Go wash up for dinner. Grandma Maria made lasagna." "Yes," Ethan cheered, sprinting into the house. Naomi watched him go, her heart swelling. He wasn't the scared boy in the suit anymore. He was happy. He was loud. He was safe. A hand rested on her shoulder. Nathan leaned down and kissed her cheek. He had traded his black suits for linen shirts and slacks, though the dangerous edge in his eyes remained, now only reserved for those who threatened his family. "Is he happy?" Nathan asked, looking at the door where Ethan vanished. "He's perfect," Naomi smiled. "He asked if he can have a telescope for his birthday." "I'll buy him the observatory," Nathan said on seriously. Naomi laughed, swatting his arm. "Just the telescope, Nate. We have to keep him grounded." Nathan pulled up a chair and sat beside her, taking her hand. He ran his thumb over her wedding ring. "Do you regret it?" he asked suddenly. "Regret what that night, the restaurant, the glass, the gun, choosing this life?" Naomi looked out at the ocean. She thought about her old life, the struggling waitress, the loneliness, the invisible existence. Then she looked at the man who would burn the world down if she scraped her knee, and the boy inside who called her mama. She turned to Nathan, her eyes fierce and loving. "I'd take the glass again," she said softly. "I'd take the bullet. I'd do it all again." Nathan smiled. A real smile, one that reached his eyes. "Good," he said, pouring himself a glass of wine, "because I have a meeting with the heads of the 5 families next week." Naomi rolled her eyes, picking up her wine glass. "Fine, but if you get blood on your suit, you're cleaning it yourself." Nathan laughed, the sound echoing over the cliffs. The waitress had saved the wolf. The wolf had crowned her queen, and together they ruled the night. This story reminds us that true strength isn't always about muscles or guns. Sometimes it's about the courage to stand up for the vulnerable when no one else will. Naomi Carter started as a waitress who was invisible to the world. But by protecting a child, she proved she had the heart of a lioness. Nathan Cole, a man made of stone, learned that love wasn't a weakness, but the ultimate weapon. Their journey proves that even in the darkest worlds, light can find a way in if you are brave enough to open the door. If your heart raced when Naomi picked up that gun, or if you melted when Ethan finally called her mama, please hit that like button. It helps us tell more stories like this. What would you have done in the alley? Would you have run, or would you have stayed to fight? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss the next part of our Mafia romance saga. Thanks for watching.